So often in these days of liberal government censorship, Bill C-11, C-18, we hear journalists say, we need more journalists in this country. And yet they're saying we also need government funding. And people say, do we need so many journalists? Well, Patrick Gossage is joining me right now because he was a journalist, is a journalist, knows the business. He was Pierre Elliott Trudeau's press secretary in the early 80s. And I want to put the question to you. Is journalism in a good state in Canada? Do we have good journalists, and do we have a need for more journalists?
Well, no. I mean, the problem is we have too few good journalists. We have too few people that really say, we're going to really look into this and set the agenda for the rest of the country. And, you know, Bob Fife, who's a veteran journalist for the Globe, and his buddy did it for the Chinese situation, which would not be a story, which would not be, you know, totally, you know, crashing the government, as it were, if it hadn't been for that journalism. So that proves, you know, the importance of Ottawa journalists. But there are too few of them. And, you know, the fact that the government is already subsidizing them drives people nuts. Andrew Coyne has gone on about this at great length. And I mean, the fact is that they don't have enough journalists, and the journalists they do have, except for a few people like Fife and like Delacourt and Chantal Hebert for the Star, are, you know, they sort of set the standard, but there are too few of them, and all the other kids that have been brought in to fill in the gaps, you know, don't remember who Trudeau was. They have no sense of the history of Canada. They don't know how the government works, and, you know, they're really not serving the public very well.
So you're making the point that I've observed that there are a lot of journalists all over the place in Canada, but very few who know how to talk or to write or who have any sense of history or any knowledge of Canada.
Well, that's true, and I mean, absolutely, and I mean, it really shows. And the other thing that's happening is that there's a coterie of so-called pundits that we see on the political shows every night of the week, and they are, you know, generally working for lobbying firms.
Right.
And, you know, this is, and they have an axe to grind, and they don't reveal their you know, their biases.
Who's paying them?
Who's paying them? And, you know, I think they do a disservice to the country. I mean, there are lots of people that know what's going on. A lot of them are in academia, and they're not used. And I'm not, you know, I just think the flow of information in this country, of real information that allows us to know what's happening, and it shows in the way the Chinese influence issue is being treated. We're getting very little background information or context on it, and, you know, which allows the opposition to say the most outrageous things and not be challenged, you know.
Well, that's what this show is all about. So, Patrick Gossage, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
3 minutes. Justin Trudeau is now on the record as saying that social media is destabilizing, and he wants to bring in censorship to determine what can be put on and not on social media. That is wrong. Please support this station, and please add your address so I can write you a letter and thank you for supporting freedom of speech.